Guess what? Hello, everyone? Okay. Hey, everyone, it's Phil, and I am back. Um, so it has been a month, and you might be asking yourself, what has Phil been doing? What has this lazy Phil been doing in the last month or so? Hmm. Okay. So you might ask, what I've been doing in this last month or so? You know, where have where have I been? And I've been pretty much where I am. Um, okay. Okay. Yeah. 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 So, anyways, I've been in the same place, but it's been kind of rough. Um, you know. So let me start with um, Bobby Zulerpi. How are you guys? Um, Hey, by the way, is the story showing up okay? I only ask because when I look at it on my tablet, it looks blurry, and I'll just shake my fist if that's the case. I'm not sure what I can do to fix that. Um, I knew a month ago what I could do to fix it, but I forgot. I'll go ahead and experiment after the stream, if that's the case. But anyways, what have I been doing? Well, let's see. I did some traveling. Bobby and I had some wings, and they were very good wings. But but more than that, my wife and I have been spending a lot of time taking care of her grandmother, who's 98. Okay. All right, Bobby. Thanks. Um, and that's actually been a little. It's been difficult for me. It's not just taking care of her grandmother. It's also her parents. Um, and it's not like anybody, even the 98-year-old, is in danger of death, or it's nothing dramatic. You know, yeah, yeah. It's nothing dramatic, but it's a bunch of little things. Like like when her mom feels tired because of COPD, and she calls us at the last minute, and it's always the last minute to go and let's say take care of dinner. And that's 3 hours down the drain. You know, and it's not that we're not willing, but you know, but there's often a lot of little emergencies like that, and combine that with my class finishing up, um, a class I'm teaching, and it's a 6 week summer course, so it was just really busy. Yeah. And then on a personal level, I have a hard time concentrating on anything. That is the truth. Um, I do my best, but I get easily distracted. Um, I was very distracted by the events in Charlottesville, um, and that stuff really shook me. Um, so yeah, so one thing piled on top of another, and there you go. A month went by, um, and I'm glad to be back. Yeah, yeah. So before I talk about this story, um, I want to talk a little bit about the burlap daughter. You know, um, the story that Journey's going to illustrate, and and I thought that you might want to hear a little bit about the process. Um, so here's the thing. I think that uh, I think I think Journey and I, on an artistic level, I think we scare each other sometimes. You know, honestly, it's frightening to have somebody who's an equal partner. It really is. Um, it's frightening because, as an artist, there tends to be like a level of ego, and I'm not talking about I'm not talking about the kind of ego that's self-aggrandizing, but I know what I know what I'm doing thing, and um, and both Journey and I have that. Like you see him on the stream, like night after night honing his craft. Well, so I went through something similar when I was writing The Burlap Daughter. I wrote that story, rewrote it over and over and over again, until I'm the expert on The Burlap Daughter and he's the expert on the art. And, and we actually didn't have this problem with Emerald Alley, because, or maybe we did like 15 years ago or 12 years ago, whatever, when I first wrote it. But by the time he picked up Emerald Alley again, I kind of thought that my contributions were done. So Burlap Daughter was the first one in recent memory where where there is that it's not, I can't even call it a clash. It's but where I remember what it's like to work with an equal partner, and so so for instance, one of the things that he did with Lissel was to give her snakes instead of tentacles, and and when he explained his reasoning to me, it made a lot of sense. But my first reaction was, but I don't want snakes. I had that choice. I could have done tentacles. I mean, I could have done snakes. I chose tentacles. That was my choice. Yeah. But then he explained his reasoning, and and I saw his sketches, and I could have kept tentacles in the story, but I saw what he did with the snakes, and that was really good stuff. So, I had to let him in, and then we had some other discussions today, where he's like, "I want to do this," and then I get possessive and jealous again. No, not my precious. Don't touch my precious. And yeah, I hadn't realized that I'd gotten jealous of my stuff like that. You can't be jealous in a collaborative environment. So after I got over my jealousy, we talked about the ideas that he had. He's going to discuss those ideas tonight, and I think he came up with some really good stuff. And then I tweaked it a little bit, and I think it's going to be good. Yeah. So Larpy, that typically doesn't matter. Like, it would only matter if let us assume that they're making little burlap dolls, just for example. That sounds like what it is. So we couldn't sell little burlap dolls called Burlap Daughter, assuming and let's assume they're trademarked. We couldn't do that. But it's but for us, the Burlap Daughter is not a good thing. So we're not going to try to make little burlap dolls. So it shouldn't be a big deal. But thanks. Okay. So let's see. Now let's get up to speed with Lissel the Gorgon, or the Gorgon Lissel, and one of the things that well, you remember that crisis I went through with this story. The crisis ain't over. Here is the crisis. I wrote the original story. I had this idea of this woman cursed by the gods. You know, she's an actual Gorgon already, and then she's cursed by the gods to turn people to turn people to salt. You know, when they look upon her, they turn to salt. Yeah. So I thought that was a really cool character. And then when I wrote Burlap Daughter, I had a little Gorgon in there, a little 3-year-old Gorgon. And then when I decided to give Zella, the main character, when I decided to give her a best friend, I thought, why not that 3-year-old daughter? And then I'm like, I've got all these Gorgons running around. Should they be different or should they be the same person? And I'm like, let's make them the same person. You know, so now we have Lissel, you know, appearing in Burlap Daughter, and even though I wrote Burlap Daughter second, I really finished it. That is, I got it to a final draft first. But the rough draft that I had for Lissel's story, it didn't work, and that's because I didn't know what to do with this curse. I was just honestly I was lost. You know, I had some outlandish ideas. Honestly, some ideas that would work well in a role-playing game, which I'll talk about maybe at the end of the stream. But what works well in a role-playing game doesn't always work well in a story. You know, the idea that I had was that now that Lissel has this curse, maybe she makes money by deploying it upon people who either seek to commit suicide or who seek to honor their god, the one they think gave her the curse. You know, and you know, and then I wrote another version of this story where some cultists actually do essentially kidnap her and pretty much get their god to curse her. And that didn't work either. So I went back in time and I wrote Lissel's story from the beginning, and starting with her parents. And when I realized, look, there's two kinds of stories. There's two basic kinds of stories. One kind of story is about internal changes, and you know, it's about how you feel and what you learn. You know, a classic example of that is Evelyn by James Joyce, about a young woman in Ireland in the early 1900s who promised her mother that she would take care of the family after mom died. Well, now everybody in her family takes advantage of her, and so she gets sick of it. She finds a boyfriend, a sailor, who wants her to sail away with him. But it's all told from an internal point of view. It's not really arguments with her family. It's what's going on the inside. You know, and the big climax of the story is, you know, does she decide to leave with her boyfriend, who she might not know all that well, or does she decide to stay with her family, whom she loves, even though they take her for granted? You know, and that central tension is internal. You know, this is, and it's not, by the way, that, I'm sorry, external stories are more like the kind of thing you see in an action movie. You know, but it doesn't mean you can't have something that does both things. You know, you could have, let's say, an action hero like John McClane, who's very concerned with his relationship with his ex-wife. Now clearly the action in Die Hard is the dominant. It's the dominant story, but there's that other story of, is he going to get back together with his ex-wife? And vice versa. You could have a story that's mostly internal, but also has some external elements. I would argue that you can have something that's a mix. I would argue that Burlap Daughter is a bit of a mix. I mean, it's a lot of internal stuff going on, but at the end of that story, you have some external. When she tears off the burlap, that to me is more of an external element. Yeah. So, anyways, but I was not sure where the hell the Lissel story was supposed to be. And I'm still not sure. So, but I think I'm getting a little closer. I'm writing little bits of her life. See, before I wrote about her parents' life. Now I'm writing about Lissel's life. And one of the things that I think is going to work about this story, even though this is like a super rough draft, like so far from the final draft, but what I've come to realize is that the most important struggle for Lissel is the internal struggle. How does she deal with this disease, because that's really what it is, that's been imposed upon her? And I might have mentioned this like a month ago, but I'll forgive you for forgetting it. I'm pretty much taking the gods out of the equation for this one. Before, I try to have her confront the gods. But now, she's not going to confront the gods. She's cursed / diseased. The doctors and shamans are doing their best. Nobody has an answer. She just has to deal with it. Sometimes life sucks. And so how do you deal with life sucking is a classic internal drama. Okay. So I wrote some notes for myself. I'll start with those. The Gorgon Lissel. This is a story about Lissel, a young Gorgon woman whose countenance literally turns people to hard sand / soft stone. She's not ugly, never was. She's been a Gorgon her entire life, but turning people to sand is new. It's a curse. She doesn't know how she'll live with herself. The symbolism is that of a diseased outcast. Who is that now? In the recent past, it was a leper. Even more recently, the AIDS patient. Always the mad ones. I just like that line. I don't know where I'm going to use it. Maybe not even in that story. So this story starts with a scene of horror, perhaps a series of vignettes. Okay. So part 1, the first time I ever saw your face. At Heart's Grace, the nursing home where she was a geriatric nurse practitioner, Lissel was never sexually harassed by the staff, but she heard dirty comments from the residents all the time, especially as she came into work through the common room. She didn't mind. She looked a bit like a Medusa. Snakes instead of hair, green scales instead of skin, a forked tongue. The residents loved to comment on her appearance. Well, what are those snakes like with your girlfriend? Emma asked. Emma and her friends laughed and wheezed, like a breeze troubling dry papers. Lissel said, "Wouldn't you like to know?" Ooh. Phil wrote Lissel said twice. Oh, my cat Lucy says hello. Okay, let's see. Emma laughed again, but then she screamed for a brief moment, and foam and white flecks came out of her nose and mouth. Lissel ran to Emma's side, called for help, and ordered the receptionist to call 911. Emma bled as if from 1,000 tiny cuts. and there was more foam, and the white flecks became mounds of salt. The whole process took 30 seconds, a short eternity of pain before Emma was dead. Lissel could do nothing except watch. Everyone else watched too, and then they began their fatal transformation, and the entire room bled and foamed and screamed and died, all except Lissel, who did not die or bleed, but who did scream, and then she wondered why she was still alive. This is important, she thought. I have to be professional. She kept on thinking that as she walked around the room and reconstructed the events in her head. Emma, who had made eye contact with her, had died first, then her friends, then those she called for help on the busybodies, and last, those who were distracted by dementia or fatigue or media. She called 911. My name is Lissel Dreyfus. I work at Heart's Grace, and I just killed everyone. She was arrested, tried, found not guilty due to an act of the gods, and was legally admonished to take appropriate precautions from now on. She sold the movie rights to her life for a tidy sum and began looking for a new job. Let's see. Part 2, A New Life. No drinking, no drugs, not that she ever indulged much. No losing control, no fights. Learning meditation and mindfulness techniques. A mask, always wearing the mask outside or when interacting with others. The snakes hated it. Constant monitoring by government doctors. These were the conditions of Lissel's new life. It was that or protective custody. During the trial, so many people sent her nude photos, sent her explicit fantasies of sex and suicide, that she quit social media and had her mail screened. But only last week, one of them found her at the local supermarket. He waited until she was alone in the frozen food section, distracted by ice cream snacks. Then he opened his trench coat, grabbed her from behind, dragged her to the floor, turned over her body, straddled her with his pasty naked body, and ripped off her mask. He turned to bloody, shitty salt on top of her. He was a large man, almost 300 pounds, and she had a difficult time struggling under his dead weight, even if it was mostly salt. But she was able to drag herself to her mask, grab it, and put it on. She cried for help, and someone called the police. She became a media sensation again for a couple of days. People made jokes, adopted her as a hero, pitied her as a victim, attacked her as a menace, and then life went on, except for Lissel, who went to counseling for survivors of sexual assault. And finally, part 3, the Everglades. Let the bugs and the gators do the rest, thought Lissel, half remembering an old country song. It was August in the Everglades, and she was tired and hot, and the air was steamy, but it would not rain. Lissel was working in her garden, had been since 8 a.m., and it was now 10. Right now, she felt foolish for having bought the old country house with the last of her money, but she had to be away from people. She was strong, good with her hands, and thankfully, her curse did not affect animals. Here, she could wear nothing more than a veil rather than a whole mask, except that right now, Zella was visiting. Another country girl like herself, gorgeous, flaming red hair, curly and long, and gently striped skin, and quiet but tough. Hey there, hot stuff, Zella said. Lissel looked up and smiled. So, you're awake. Okay. So, here was a question that I had when I was writing Burlap Daughter. Should Zella and Lissel be lovers? You know, and I thought that in Burlap Daughter it would be too much, and it would be distracting. I do have a point in that story where Zella wants to be attractive to somebody. You know, she hates being in that fucking burlap. You know, she has sexual feelings and enough vanity to want to be wanted. But she's not at a stage in her life where that makes sense. And so then I wondered about this story. Well, I wanted to bring Zella back, and And honestly, Lissel is having problems with sex too, because it's hard. It's hard being a Gorgon and having sex like she is, like where she can kill you with her face. It's hard to have sex with somebody like that. It's hard for her to find a lover who's who's not who's not a weirdo, in some way, So who can she trust, And then the other thing is that I see so many young people, um, you know, the next generation is so sexually fluid, you know, that um, that that sometimes they look at themselves and they're like, today I'm a boy, today I'm a girl, and the same thing goes to their attraction. I'm not saying all of them are like that, but there's a lot, And so what happens in this chaotic world? You know, um, I figure that a lot more people would have would have a would have gender and attraction fluidity. So that's kind of what's going on here, you know. And I think with part three, I kind of found like the internal drama, you know, um, at least part of it. Um, I think that Lissel and Zella are going to fight, or at least have a strong disagreement about whether or not they should be together. You know, and it won't be because they're not compatible, and it won't be because they don't love each other. It'll be because Zella's so goddamn dangerous. I mean, because Lissel is so goddamn dangerous. You know, um, and that's going to be a hard conversation. You know, um, so that might end up being like the bulk of my story. This smallest part here. Um, I'm not sure if I'll keep the assault in the supermarket. I'm pretty sure I'm going to keep the the, uh, the horror in the nursing home. You know, yeah. Um, but yeah, but that question of, did you stay with somebody who's that dangerous? Because um, I already know Lascelles' argument. Like I can, you know, and I'll just preview it for you. The argument is this: it's so easy to slip up once. It's so easy for the mask to fall off once, for a strap that you thought was secure to not be secure, for somebody to wake up in the middle of the night and not realize that the other person's also woken up. You know, it could, and ultimately, Lissel would have to be on guard, and Zella would have to be on guard. You know, so that is the logical side. You know, um, and but then there's the emotional side too. That people need each other. So sex has become a long handshake. I'm not sure if it's a long handshake for everybody, Zulerpi, but but yeah. Um, and I'd like to point out uh, that I ran a short science fiction game, like a goofy sci-fi game, and Bobby was one of the players, and he played a character, a he played he played a hanging judge from the 1800s who'd been time shifted into the future, and his character was homosexual, but the people in the future looked down on him because he was only homosexual. They saw that as one of the conservative sexual attitudes. You mean you only have sex with one gender? What's wrong with you? You know. So we could be heading towards that future. You know. Yeah. So that is the story so far. This is, I'm not sure if I can call it a story. These are the lots I have cast before my muse, and I will attempt to, work on it. I will work on it some more. Hopefully I'll be able to stream again tomorrow night. And the other thing I'm going to be working on is a role playing game set in this era. And perhaps I've mentioned this before, but I'll pretend I haven't. So my idea for the role playing game is that the characters are more adventure worthy than some of these characters I'm writing about, but that it's sort of like Shadowrun in the sense that we have different versions of humans. Shadowrun has dwarves and elves and orcs and trolls. Well, we have Gorgons, we have striped people. You haven't seen the stories yet, but there's going to be aliens too. One of the earliest stories I wrote, that party at the beach has like almost like a mermaid in it, but she's not exactly that. And so, unlike Shadowrun, the different races are not going to be so D&D like. And unlike Shadowrun, your characters will have a lot of options. Like, and I don't know if you've played Shadowrun. It's a fun game, but it creates part of that fun by limiting your options. For example, none of your characters has the equivalent of a legitimate Social Security number in Shadowrun, which means that the only jobs open for you are illegal jobs. And exploring outer space is basically impossible in Shadowrun. Exploring other worlds, like other dimensions, is pretty much impossible. What you do in Shadowrun is corporate espionage all the time, one way or another. Assassinations, spying, theft, acting as bodyguards, hacking. That is what you do in Shadowrun. And so I'm envisioning something similar in the sense that the world changed radically and magic became part of the world. But unlike Shadowrun, it's not a world in which the only use for that is corporate espionage. Your characters will be able to travel to other dimensions because some of these gods made that possible. You'll be able to travel to other planets because you've got aliens visiting. And you'll be able to do stuff on Earth too, because there's a lot that needs to be done. So that's basically that. I'm going to try switching between the two. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is my short return. I'm going to have more for you tomorrow, and hopefully at least one more time this week. All right. Good night, all.